name of the town is Grover's Corners. First act is a day in our town. The day is May 7th, 1901. The time is just before dawn. Well, I guess we'll show how our town lies. Up here is Main Street. Along here is a row of stores, hitching posts and horse blocks in front of them. First automobiles that come around about 5 years. Public school's over yonder, high school's still farther over. This is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. This is the back door. There's some scenery for those who think they need to have scenery. And back then, our newspaper came out twice a week, the Grover's Corners Sentinel. This is Editor Webb's house. It's a nice town, you know what I mean? The only lights on in town are in a cottage over by the tracks where a Polish mother has just had twins, and the Joe Crow house where Jill Jr. is getting up so early to deliver the morning paper. Another day's begun. There's Doc Gibbs, coming over that baby case. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital's named after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first, in fact, a long time ago. She was visiting her daughter Rebecca in Ohio and died there. Pneumonia, but her body was brought back here. There's Doc Gibbs. Got that call at 1:30 this morning. And here comes Jill Crowell during Mr. Webb's Sentinel.
Morning, Doc Gibbs.
Oh, morning, Jill.
Has someone been sick, Doc?
Oh, a pair of twins born over in Polish town.
Do you want your paper now?
Yes, I'll take it. Anything new in the world happened since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. Why, my school teacher, Miss Foster's getting married to a fellow over in Concord.
I declare. How do you kids feel about that?
Well, of course, it's none of my business, but I think if a person starts out to be a teacher, she ought to stay one.
How's your knee, Jill?
Fine, Doc. I don't think about it much. Only like you said, always said it was going to rain.
Gonna rain, Jill?
No, sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever make a mistake?
No, sir.
I want to tell you something about that girl Jill Crowell there. Jill was awfully bright, graduated high school here head of her class. So she got a scholarship to go to college in Massachusetts, where she graduated head of her class there as well. Sadly, Jill caught a fever and died shortly after. All the education for nothing.
Get up, Bessie. What's the matter with you today?
Here comes Howie Newsome delivering the milk.
Morning, Doc.
Oh, morning, Howie.
Somebody sick?
Oh, a pair of twins over at Miss Gorslowski's.
Twins, eh? This town's getting bigger every year.
Gonna rain, Howie.
No, fine day. It'll burn through. Come on, Bessie.
Oh, Bessie, how old is she, Howie?
Going on 17. Bessie's all mixed up about the root. Ever since the Lockhart stopped taking a quart of milk every day. She wants to leave him a quart just the same. Keeps scolding me the whole trip.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Mrs. Gibbs. Doc's just coming down the street.
Izzy seems like you're late today.
Yep. Something went wrong with the separator. Don't know what it was.
Children, time to get up. George, Rebecca. Everything all right, Frank?
Yes, easy as kittens.
Bacon will be ready in a minute. Sit down and drink your coffee. You can't catch a couple of hours sleep this morning now, can't you?
Miss Wentworth's coming at 11. Guess I know what it's about too. Her stomach ain't what it ought to be.
All told, you won't get more than 3 hours of sleep. Frank Gibbs, I don't know what's going to become of you. I really do wish you could get a rest in time.
Emily, it's time to get up.
I declare you got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. I can't even get him to cut me some water.
Is he sassy?
No, he just whines. All he talks about is baseball.
George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school. George?
George, look sharp.
Yes, Pa.
Don't you hear your mother calling you? I guess I'll go upstairs and be 40 minutes here.
Emily, you'll be late for school.
Mama, just there.
Don't you make a noise. Your father's been out all night. I've washed and ironed a blue gingham for you special.
Oh, Mom, I hate that dress.
Oh, hush up with you.
Every day I go to school looking like 6 times.
Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice.
Mama, George is going to sew for me.
I'll come aside the both of you. That's what I do.
Now, Emily, I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I will not have you gobbling like a wolf. I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I'm going, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
I'll speak to your father when he's rested. Seems to me 25 cents is enough for a boy your age. I declare I don't know what to spend it on.
Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Yeah, strawberry phosphates. That's what to spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. She has more than $1.
I've been saving up gradually.
Well, I think it's good to spend some every now and then.
Mama, do you know what I love most in this world? Do you? Mine.
Eat your breakfast.
Walk fast, Emily. Don't run. Stand up straight.
Tell Miss Foster I send her my best congratulations. Can you remember that?
get that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles I didn't know if I'd go to choir practice tonight. Wouldn't do me any use.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
Yes, but somehow I can't seem to do that and stay on key. So I'm resting myself. I thought I'd string some of these beans.
Beans have been good this year. Give me some of them.
I decided to put up 40 chords if it kills me. The children say they hate them, but I notice they're able to get them down all winter.
Now, Myrtle, I've got to tell you something, because if I don't tell somebody, I'll just burst.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
Here, give me some more of them beans. Myrtle, did one of those second-hand furniture men from Boston come to see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. First, I thought it was a patient waiting to see Dr. Gibbs, and then he wormed his way into the parlor. And Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's Hathaway, as I'm sitting here.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
He did that old thing where it was so big, I didn't know where to put it, and I almost gave it to cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know. $350. Julia, what's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take me on a road trip, you know I'd take it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been a dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, I don't know, sounds crazy, seems like, but if I ever got a chance.
What does the doctor say about it?
Well, I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he said, it might make him drip just down in the Grover's Funnest, a little traipsing about Europe somewhere. Better let Lola alone enough, he says.
Well, just keep dropping little hints from time to time. Then you'll see Europe, all right? That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry I mentioned it. It always seems like one day you gotta go to a country where they don't speak English and don't even want to at all.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Now we're going to skip a few hours. But first, we want a little more information about the town. So I've asked Professor Willard of our State University to sketch in a few details of past history here. Is Professor Willard here? May I introduce Professor Willard of our State University. A few brief notes, thank you. And Professor, unfortunately our time is limited.
Grover's Corners, let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pleistocene granite of the Appalachian Range. It's some of the oldest land in the world, and we're very proud of that. A shelf of Devonian basalt crosses it with vestiges of Mesozoic shale, and some sandstone outcroppings too, but that's all more recent, 200, 300 million years old. Some highly interesting fossils, I may say unique fossils, have been found 2 miles out of town in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. They can be seen at the museum in our university at any time. That is, at any reasonable time, of course. Shall I read some of Professor Gruber's notes on the meteorological situation, mean precipitation, etc.?
I'm afraid we don't have time for that, Professor. We may have a few brief notes on the history of man here.
Yes, anthropological data. Early Amerindian stock were Cotahatchee tribes. No evidence before the 10th century of this era. Since then entirely extinct, with possible traces in 3 families. Towards the end of the 17th century, migration of English brachycephalic blue-eyed stock. Since then, some Slav and Mediterranean.
And the population, Professor Willard.
Within the town limits, 2,640.
Just more, Professor.
Oh yes, the population at the moment is 2,642. The postal district brings in 507 more, making it a total of 3,149. Mortality and birth rates are constant. By McPherson's gauge, 6.032.
Thank you very much, Professor. We're all very much obliged to you, I'm sure.
Not at all, ma'am, not at all.
This way again. Thank you. Now the political and social report. Editor Webb. Mr. Webb? Mr. Webb is editor and publisher of the Grover's Corners Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know.
Well, I don't need to tell you that we're run by a board of selectmen. Males vote at the age of 21, women vote indirect. We're lower middle class, sprinkling of professional men. Politically, we're 86% Republican, 4% Democrat, 4% Socialist, the rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestant, 12% Catholic, the rest indifferent.
Have you any comments, Mr. Webb?
A very ordinary town, if you ask me. Probably a lot duller than most. But our young people seem to like it enough. 95% of them move back here, even when they've been away to college.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Now we'll go back to the town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners, and all the dishes have been washed. There's an early afternoon calm in our town. A hum and a buzzing from the school buildings. Children at home doing the schoolwork. It's very interesting. Nope. No, they're coming up Main Street now.
I can't, Louise. I've got to go home and help my mother. I promised.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Papa, you're terrible. One minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next minute you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
Golly, never gotten such a kiss from a grand lady before.
Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class today.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Crawford made me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on both of them.
You know, it's funny, Emily, from my window over there, I can just about see the headlights in your window when you're studying.
Why, can you?
You certainly do stick to it, Emily. I don't see how you can sit still for that long. I guess you just like school.
I don't mind it, really. It passes the time.
Yeah.
Figure it's just something a person has to go through.
Yeah. Emily, what do you say we figure out a sort of telegraph system from your window to mine, and once in a while you could give me a hint or two on one of those algebra problems? I don't mean the answers. Of course not. Just a hint.
Well, George, I do think hints are allowed. So next time you get stuck, you whistle at me and I'll give you a couple hints.
You're just naturally bright, I guess, Emily.
I figure that's just the way a person's born.
Yeah, but you see, I want to be a farmer, and my Uncle Luke says that whenever I'm ready, I can come work on his farm, and if I'm any good, I can just have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Well, I better be getting out to practice. Thanks for the talk, Emily. Good afternoon, Willard.
Good afternoon, George. Emily, you can help me string these beans for the winter. George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? How old would George be?
I don't know.
Well, he must be almost 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today and I did very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper.
It was about the Louisiana Purchase. It was like soap opera school. I want to make speeches my whole life. Mama, are these big enough?
Try to get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, can I ask you a question? Serious?
Seriously, dear. Not serious.
Seriously. Can I?
Of course you can.
Mama, am I good looking?
Well, of course you are. All my children have got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
No, Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I've already told you yes. I've never heard of such foolishness. You have a nice, young, pretty face.
But, Mama, you never tell the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth, dear.
Well, Mama, were you pretty?
Well, yes, I was, if I do say so myself. I was the prettiest girl in town, next to Mammy Cartwright.
But, Mama, you've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody, to get people interested in me?
I've already told you yes. And well, you make me tired. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes. Now come along and bring those beans with you.
Oh, Mama, you're no help at all.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Now, there's some more things we want to explore about this town. I think this is a good time to tell you that the Cartwrights have just begun building a new bank at Grover's Corners, and they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now. Of course, we're putting a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We're putting in a Bible, Constitution of the United States, and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. So, I'm having a copy of this play put in there as well, so the people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us. So, people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York in the early 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up, in our marrying, in our living, and in our dying. Well, a good deal of time has gone by. It's evening. You can hear choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. Your children are at home doing the schoolwork. The day is running down like a tired clock.
Now look here, everybody. Music comes into the world to give pleasure. Softer, softer. Get it out of your head that music's only good when it's loud. You leave loudness to those Methodists. You could have beat them if you wanted to. Now go again. Tenors.
Psst. Emily.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, isn't the moonlight terrible?
Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third?
Why, yes, George, that's the easiest of them all.
I don't see it. Kid, do you give me a hint?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The answer is in yards.
In yards? How do you figure?
Yes, George, don't you see? In square yards.
Square yards.
In square yards of wallpaper.
Wallpaper, right.
Well, I guess I better go back and try to finish my work.
Thanks, Emily.
Good night, George.
be able to come in Tuesday afternoon and sing at Fred Hurst's wedding. Show your hands. That'll be fine. That'll be right nice. Now we'll do Art Thou Weary. Art Thou Languid? It's a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk. Ready?
Well, George, can you come down a minute?
Yes, Paul.
Make yourself comfortable, George. I'll only keep you a minute. George, how old are you?
16, almost 17.
What do you plan on doing after school?
You know, Paul, I want to work on Uncle Luke's farm.
If you will, and we can get up early and go and feed the stock. I wouldn't hay all day long.
Of course I will. What are you talking about?
Oh, I was in my office earlier today, and I heard a funny sound. What do you think it was? It was your mother, chopping wood. There you see your mother getting up early, cooking meals, washing, ironing, and she still has to go out in the backyard and chop wood. I suppose she got tired of asking you and decided to do it herself. You put on the clothes she keeps nice for you, eat her meals, and go out and play baseball like she's some hired girl that we keep around the house, but that we don't like very much. I know all I had to do was bring your attention to it, George. I made a decision. I've decided that you're spending money 25 cents a week. Not for chopping wood for your mother, because that's a present you're going to give her. But because you're getting older, and I find you might have something valuable to do.
Thanks, Paul.
Probably Rebecca will feel she got to have more too. Wonder what could have happened to your mother. Choir practice never was this late before.
It's only 8:30, Paul.
I don't know why she's in that old choir practice anyway. She has more voice than an old crow traipsing around the street at this hour of night. Just about time you retired, George, don't you think?
Yes, Paul.
How lovely, yes.
Well, good night, Martha. Good night, Mrs. Foster.
My lady.
I'll tell Mr. Webb. I know he'll want to put it in the paper.
Oh, good night, Emma.
Real nice corn practice, wasn't it? Murder weather, look at that moon. Potato weather for sure.
Well, naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of those others, but now that we're alone, really, it's the worst scandal that was ever in this town.
What?
Simon Simpson.
Now Luella.
But Julia, to have the organist of a church drink and drunk year after year, you know he was drunk tonight.
Now Luella, we all know about Mr. Simpson and we all know about his affairs. And Dr. Ferguson knows too. And if Dr. Ferguson just keeps him out there in a job, the rest of us to do is just not to know.
Not to notice it, but it's getting worse.
No, it isn't, Luella. I've been in that choir twice as long as you have, and it doesn't happen anywhere near so often. I hate to go to bed on a night like this. I better hurry up. Those children will be waiting up till all hours.
Oh, good night, good night.
Can you get home safe, Luella?
It's as bright as day. I can see Mr. Stone scowling out the window now. You could have been to a dance the way the men folk carry on.
Well, we had a real good time.
You're late enough.
Why, Frank, it ain't any later than usual.
Are you stopping at that corner to gossip with that lot of hens?
Come on, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come on and smell the flowers in the moonlight. What did you do all the time I was away?
Oh, I read as usual. What were you girls gossiping about tonight?
Well, believe me, Frank, there is something to gossip about.
Simon Stimson far gone, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. How do you think that'll end, Frank? Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
I guess I know more about Simon Stimson's affairs than anybody else in this town. Some people just ain't made for small town life, you know. I don't know how that'll end, but the best we can do is just leave it alone. Come on, dear. Get in.
No, not yet. Frank, I'm worried about you.
What are you worried about, dear?
Well, I think it's my duty for you to get a real rest, and if I get the legacy, well, I'm going to insist on it.
Oh, Julia, there's no sense in going over that again.
Frank, you're just unreasonable.
Dear, before you know it, you'll catch a death of the cold, and it's getting late. Come on, I gave George a piece of my mind tonight, and I reckon you'll have your wood chopped for a while. Come on, start getting upstairs.
Oh, dear, there's only so much to pick up, seems like. You know, Mrs. Fairchild always locks her front door every night. All these people up the part of town do.
Well, they're all getting citified. That's the trouble with them. They've got nothing fit to burgle, and everybody knows it.
Get out of larger, Rebecca. There's only room for one in this window.
Well, let me just look a minute.
Use your own window.
I did, but there was no room there. George, do you know what I think, do you? I think that maybe the moon is getting nearer and nearer, and there's going to be this big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon were getting nearer and nearer, the people who sit at their telescopes all night looking at it would see it, they'd write about it, and we'd read it in the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining down in Canada, South America, and half of the whole world?
Well, it probably is.
9:30. Most of the lights are out in Grove's Corners. No, there's Mrs. Warren coming down Main Street now. And Editor Webb is putting his newspaper to bed.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Webb.
Quite a mood?
Yep.
Everything all quiet tonight?
Simon Simpson's rolling around a little. I just saw his wife moving out to hunt, so I looked the other way. There he is now.
Good evening, Simon. The town seems to have settled down for the night. Simon? Good night.
I don't know how that's going to end, Mr. Webb.
Well, he's seen a lot of trouble, one thing after another. Well, good night.
Good night.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, it's me, Papa.
Why aren't you in bed?
Oh, I don't know. The moonlight's so wonderful. And the smell of Mrs. Gibbs's heliotropes. Can you smell them?
Yes, well, don't let your mother catch you. Good night, Emily.
Good night, Papa. I never told you about that letter that Jane Croker got me from this when she was sick. He wrote Jane a letter, and on the envelope the address was like this. It said, Jane Croker, Croker Farm, Grover's Corners, Sutton County, New Hampshire, United States of America.
What's funny about that?
But listen, it's not finished. United States of America, continent of North America, Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mind of God. It has to have said in the letter.
Well, what do you know?
And the postman brought it just the same.
Well, what do you know?